I'm excited to have my next guest, the director of photography known for his work for short films such as Ghosts in the Graveyard, Hair Detective, and the Horrorverse. With many more projects in development, with a strong focus on cinematography, he brings a creative vision and technical expertise to both no budget and low budget productions, striving to leave a lasting impact on the film industry. Please welcome to the Downing Cut, Matt McKinney. Thanks for being here, Matt.
Yeah,
How are you?
such a good strong intro with that one.
Hey, you sent
Epic.
it to me, man.
I know, it's like it really sums it up in
Yeah.
that good statement. I love it.
So, how are you? I'm excited to meet you. I finally put a face to a profile, unlike a red panda,
Yep.
because you don't look like a red panda, but it is a
Yeah.
cute picture. I will give you that.
Oh yeah.
Um, the I always like to start off and just ask people. So, you're a cinematographer. How did your journey start? What led you into this domain?
So a really good question there. So my big thing was I was really into programming and coding and stuff in junior high, and that kind of carried over into high school. So it was like this very divisional thing at first, where I was going from robotics to purely programming. And along the way, it was kind of a good venture there at first. I kind of got into a couple different graphic design and editing programs with that. And so that's kind of where the journey into a digital platform kind of started for me at first. The funny thing about it is, I swiftly realized when you go from basic coding platforms like HTML and CSS to Java, and you don't explore that early in life, your brain melts immediately.
Yeah.
It becomes a really bad habit. You're trying to shake. You're like, it just doesn't quite work out. So, um, upon kind of discovering that my junior year of high school, when I was like, it was a fun ride, didn't quite click the way I want. I was fortunate enough that my high school had a video production program that they used mainly for like news broadcasting, but they tried to merge the worlds, and like you could explore video editing, you could get into like early style videography and everything of that nature. So I knew as soon as I got into that my junior year of high school, I was there wasn't a failure in the world that like took me down any sort of rabbit hole. It was just like it clicked immediately. I was writing projects, I was producing projects, I was doing anything in the nature that I could. I was the biggest thing, which I think a lot of people stall my stride for being behind the camera right away, is I was doing live action sporting events, and
Oh,
was particularly great at it. I mean, they were live streams every like Friday night and everything, and it was just a really
yeah.
passion. So from there, it was kind of like, wow, I have this really deep connection to this right away. And so I kind of explored it a little bit on my own beyond just high school and everything. I started doing freelance projects periodically, more as like a fun thing, but didn't delve into the professional side yet. That really came into gear in college when I was pursuing my degree in digital filmmaking. And so that was a really fun process, meeting a lot of good and fun creative people along the way. And so really got a lot of good short films under my belt, started to like understand the shapings and like the thematics of like what makes a good story. Like, so you're not just shaped to like, oh, you're doing something behind a camera and somebody's just randomly doing something. There was purpose, there was essence into what I was doing. So that's the basis of it. And from there, I continued that through my college journey and everything, aside from a couple of not film related courses along the way. There were more technical aspects of why it was delayed for a little bit, but all my filmmaking stuff instantaneously was like far and beyond. Like I never had like the harshest comments at all. There were times where, you deal with constructive criticism, but
Yeah.
not enough to ever put me down. It was just,
Yeah.
you're shaping stories.
Well, that's one of the questions I always ask is about constructive criticism. What is the best constructive criticism you've received that stuck with you?
So I can actually look at that from both perspectives. The best constructive criticism, I think, is when people can provide you reasoning for why something might not work, or why something is like over the top and like really connects with the dynamics between character and story. When it really backfires is when you're getting like multiple rounds of like, what is it? Like you're getting multiple rounds of like reviewing and everything like that, or just like notes that periodically could arrive at either small points or high points. And there's no justification. It's just like, it's those single word, like point out answers, or you go back into a revision process and like writing or just like constructing in production. And you're like, well, you said this was good originally. We changed this, and then you're like, oh, that's bad, but this is now good, even though it didn't remotely relate to whatever it was at all.
Yeah.
it's kind
Yeah.
of that's kind of the way I look at it. Is when you can actually justify probable reasoning to, okay, what is it you're feeling, or what is it that you feel like you're not connecting to within the moment of like you're sucked into the story, or what pulls you back, basically.
What so let's for our audience who are new to cinematography, I know there's a ton of YouTube pages and channels and stuff, but from your perspective, what give me like a short 2 sentence, what is cinematography? What does that involve? What is it exactly? Is it just holding a camera?
So I look at cinematography because people view this through multiple lenses, kind of ironically enough, is,
No
you
pun
know,
intended.
you look at the perspective here of like, okay, somebody that understands not only an image, but understands everything that you're seeing within that image. So like like, to use a prime example to compare it to, is like photography. What do people look for? That they look for a very still and clear image where there's a subject, there's stuff that fills in the space that naturally belongs there, and then there's a background that could just add that much more of an appeal to it. But it's all stationary and it's about the moment, not a sequence of time passing, basically.
Yeah.
And then you look at videography, it's all about the concept of motion and everything, basically. Like, there's subject to it, but there's not a story really happening. It's just, hey, can we look at this in a certain way, and does it look visually appealing, to the pure eye, or something like that, to the human eye, basically.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into cinematography, you hold on to those concepts, but you start looking at, okay, we're not looking at the layers anymore. We're looking at what's projecting the image that's going into those layers, basically, and then what's allowing the sequence to flow. So like, when I approach cinematography, getting outside the general norms of videography, it's, how am I shaping the light to best suit this subject, or like have that background like stand out the way that it needs to? How am I establishing an environment if we're going to go into something that has like a pure thematic element to it, whether it be action and there's like really hard like stops in motion and everything like that. There's a fluidity of motion that goes beyond anybody's concept. Or, you really kind of slow the pace down. You get into more dramatic moment of like, people are talking, it ramps up a little bit, but they can pull themselves back. So those are kind of like the core elements that I look at right away, is like, I see the technical, but there has to be a pure emotion to it that makes you go, oh my gosh, that's I'm really pulling in by it. Like, the emotion is kicking off. It's like you're feeling what somebody in a scene is feeling, or you're feeling the environment as though there's emotion to it, basically. Is kind of always
Okay.
the way that I've looked at it.
So you're working very closely with not only gaffers, but you're working very closely with the set designers
Yeah.
as well. Okay. Do you ever give like direction to them and say, well, let's move that over here, or let's move that? I mean, does that come into play?
Yep. And I think I found that more impressive in the last probably year and a half, I'd say, is where I started. Because there's a way that I adapted to like the way that I see lighting and everything, and that's kind of the thing that I play around with the most, because you're a cinematographer and you get really good at lighting and everything. Everything else is just practiced outcome, basically. It's like,
Mm.
okay, well, the lighting's good. It's really emphasizing the way that an actor or an actress is feeling and everything like that. And then you're trying to figure out beyond that, and it takes time. It's a really elaborate process of like trying to get beyond a singular theme, because most people acknowledge this, but and it's not impossible, but humans were definitely not meant to multitask. It's as
Yeah.
painful as it is.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to get used to that concept. So when you get to that point though, and you're thinking not just, oh, there's a camera there, you're thinking, no, what exists in this environment, from the subjects to the set dressing to the background to any props that exist to the yeah, it could go on forever.
Yeah.
So I found it recently where it's like, I've tapped out from lighting a little bit more, and I'm starting to like focus on set dressing a little bit more. I even saw it with the recent film that I did for a top actor that some people are familiar with, John Megason, wrote and directed a short film for the first time ever, and it was pretty good. And I like go back and analyze it, and I'm like, I like the way that we delved into color and everything, and I like the way that we shaped the environment. We got a little bit better about the way that we're making stuff stand out so that there's like a three-dimensional effect to it almost, so that you're not just like looking at something flat.
Hmm.
But obviously, you look at the constraints that you have as well. So like most people might be like those isolated tight shots that exist, you'll be like, well, it looks flat because it's just the wall. But at the same time, it's like, I acknowledge it. I wish there could be better ways of doing it, but constraints exist for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
so you when you're talking about that three dimension, are you talking about like contrasting colors and stuff? Is or shaping light?
So a little bit of both of those. So like you can contrast it a little bit. You can shape the light to fit the way that you think it works with like skin tones, or like the way that it can like bend to an environment, like make it kind of visually pop a little bit more if you really can't put something into like into the mid ground layer kind of to a degree, because background's always going to be there. It's constant, it's the one thing that even in a tight shot, it's like something is filling the frame regardless if it's just isolated on a subject.
Hmm.
When you get into mid ground elements though, it becomes difficult because you're like, if there's no space, how can you separate stuff in real time to like make it dynamic enough that it'll stick to the point of like, hey, you're looking at a subject, but you're visually finding like good cues in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you this. I want you to take your technical brain, turn it off. And then I want you to take your experience that you've been all these sets, watching all these actors, and I'm going to ask you, what qualities or skills do you believe set an exceptional actor, a good actor, apart from the rest?
The biggest thing that I say when it comes to acting, that, you know, when it comes down to the technical part, it's, hey, do you understand the words that you're saying? Do you understand the dialogue? Do you understand the motion that you're projecting in the moment? And then do you know how to like blend with your environment and everything? From the experience side of it, where you go beyond the technical side of like, oh, hey, I just look great on camera, or hey, I blend to that distinction perfectly well,
Yeah.
is from the experiences. People have said this before, and it's a really big concept here. Is like, we get to the concept of like method acting. It's like, what makes good method acting? It's not, people's perception is, well, hey, they're just going into it and everything like that. They're embodying a character. It's like, no, people forget what makes great actors. It's when they're not acting anymore. It's just real.
Yeah.
they they've drawn on prior experiences, the emotions that they inhabit, everything like that, and they just forget anything's there. But it's just, the scene is life at this point.
And I'm sure you've seen that, right? You've seen it click, but you've seen also both sides, right? You've seen people who are
Yeah,
not that
people
well
that
versed.
robotically just go along with the foundation of like, well, this is what I'm reading today, or this is the, I'm going to walk this way and this is how it's going to be. It's like, no, you got to use that as an outline, and you have to build a character from there that's tethered to you basically. So like,
Yeah.
you can have different, like, people that don't have certain experiences at times, there are ways that you can work around that, but you have to remember, okay, I'm going to look at a page real quick, but then I have to step into it. you have to forget that it was you were reading a page. That's an outline. When you get
Yeah.
into the acting foundations, it's I'm going in there. This is my moment. I'm. This is life. This is real at this point. It's like, in a concept of what was that? Like one of the horror films that I did and everything like that. It's like one of the smaller, lesser known things that I don't think gets talked about enough, just because we do like really good with like the horror landscape of like the murders and the the instances of like finding that psychopathic side to them. That group session and one of them where they're just all sat around and it's almost like it's a very like mental health session almost. It became this thing of when you really look at it, it didn't feel like it was robotic or anything at all. It was just they inhabited it. It was like a couple of good examples. Like my sister was like one of the closest things in my life and everything like that. And the fact that we're talking about all this is bullshit and everything. It's like you get
Yeah.
that, and it's like the emotion, the raw anger and stuff, and just pure sadness comes out. You're just like, okay, that that happens.
So how do
Like,
you I feel like you get the front row seat when you're watching an actor,
mhm.
and you have the control along with the director. Obviously the director is watching with you. Um how much authority do you have if you see that an actor's not performing, you see that it's not working? Are you the type of person that'd say, I need to talk to your director, or do you just wait? You just hope the director will see it.
So there, I'd say probably closer to the beginning of the career. It's kind of you want to take your foot off the gas to a degree because you have so much control for the way that like things are framed and the dynamics that go into it. It's like right from the get-go, like I've never had any problems like talking to crew whatsoever. If people have ideas, and I've reiterated this to new people I've met recently that have some experience with it, they always have this like knee-jerk reaction right away. It's like, well, are you sure you want to go with it? It's like, if I'm not coming up with the idea in the moment and you're coming up with ideas, that is the greatest thing that can happen here. It's like
The
I can't be the
collaboration.
one trick pony that makes everything come together here. That's why it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so I'd say at first though, you take your foot off the gas, you give a little bit of reserve, and because the director wants to be able to like recognize things in the moment, I kind of gave that effect. I think it's when you really build a rapport and like a good communication with directors over time, especially if it's a reoccurring thing. You kind of get in each other's heads and you realize either silently or like off to the side right away that
Mhm.
they're not gonna, they're not gonna go against you unless they're like really stubborn for some reason about it. Directors are typically usually open to at least hearing the note. If they really don't see what you're seeing, then it's like, okay, well, I'll run with it because I'm that genuine a person enough to do it. Other people are probably going to have different thought processes toward that. But for the most part of my experience, I've never had a director that right away said, no, I'm not going to do that idea or take that suggestion to heart at anything like that. Like they're
Oh, that's
usually
good.
open to the idea of like, hey, if something wasn't clicking directly or we're looking at playback and whatnot on monitors right away and they recognize it right away, they're just like, they don't belliger people either. They're just like, hey, like let's test it this way or like let's run it this way. It's like, and I think from my perspective is like because I started delving into like the processes of directing more recently. I'm still trying to get my footing for actually doing it. But if I was
Yeah.
approaching something as a director, my whole thing when it comes to actors and the way that I want to direct them is it can't be I'm telling them what to do. It needs to be more of a questionable thing of like, what do you see for yourself in this moment? What are the
Mhm.
experiences that you're drawing on? How do you feel a more emotional connection and depth with the person that you're, acting for or against, basically? Because
Yeah.
that's ultimately what gets actors to the perspective of like, hey, a person's not telling them anything at this point. They're just figuring it out. they're
Right.
they're like, we actually are understanding the hows and whys of what's happening in the scene, and it's them figuring it out for themselves, not somebody telling them. It's like, and they surprise themselves with it. Like it could be something as simple in the moment of like, oh, he approached that question to me and whatnot, and the scene's about to start. And then they're in their heads for a minute, they're kind of visualizing, they're like, okay, let's go with this. And generally most of the time it's gonna be you'll go through the general standard of like, okay, you'll slate it, you'll call action, everything like that. But those rare instances, and we've done this a few times, and this is actually where things have really clicked. Just as a random joke, just to say, okay, you take a minute, you practice the process, you go for it. Somebody will usually be off to the side and whatnot, be like, and then
Yeah.
we'll just be like, we'll run it, and then somebody will say cut, and they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, exactly. You see what you did there? And then they look at it in the playback, and they're like, oh my god, that was so good. It was like, yeah, because they didn't expect it now.
Yeah.
You got to get those random moments where you can, where they're not stricken by anything. There's just like you're there, you're inhabiting the moment. It's all on you.
How do you balance the creative expression with practical limitations of indie filmmaking, such as a budget or time constraints?
I look at it as like, because we've had the biggest thing in my experience that it's like, it's not impossible to do in the indie world, but I feel like it's very constricted because especially if you don't have budgets drawn together, if you're doing it on like voluntary time, you're doing it on favors. As much as actors want to explore the depth of like, oh, you want to go for really big dramatic dialogue scenes, it's hard to approach that point because you get to the technical scheduling aspect. When you have really large, drawn out dialogue scenes that might be really good for what they are in the moment and everything, it's hard because you're like, if it gets messed up even a little bit and you're doing that repetitively, the schedule just exponentially grew.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's finding ways of adapting to those dialogue moments, and really big choreograph moments I think are the biggest thing, where the indie and I don't know, I'd say even maybe like the streaming world, kind of like the studio world obviously has like they have a whole different plethora of like different standards and whatnot, and they can draw on because people's immediate thought process is, oh, I'm getting paid exponentially for this.
Yeah.
This is they like me for my talent, they like me for my skill set and my knowledge, but people will, they'll go out of their way because they're like, hey, we're actually benefiting from this, we're getting a livelihood out of this, versus the indie world where it's like, granted, you do have passionate people and whatnot, and this is definitely one of the best states for that. People, the general public's assumption out here right away, because I've had numerous talks with people about this, they have the assumption that right away, oh, it's a small filmmaker community, you'll get a couple people here and there, and then that's pretty much that. I mean, it's good that they're trying to be creative, but they got to go other places. And I hear those talks and everything, and I say to people, I'm like, guys, you have no idea.
Right.
The community out here is not shorthanded at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You think it is, but and then I pop the joke to them every so often of either like, oh, like, here, I can start listing some names off for you. Here, let's go through the list that I have right here of every
Yeah.
contact there is.
Do you have a gaffer that you normally work with then?
I was fortunate enough recently that I ended up finding a gaffer that I have a feeling is probably going to be my regular guy, because he knocks it out of the park. He's very artistic in the sense that he takes inspiration from like really old school gaffers and like lighting experts and whatnot. The best example, which I've always had an attachment to, purely because of cinematography at first, but at the same time, I'm a fan of gaffing to a degree as well when it comes up, and I can do it every so often because of my inventory that I'm fortunate to have, is having that connection to deacons.
Yeah.
So
What
it really draws inspiration from that.
what visual storytelling techniques do you rely on to create an emotional depth when working with limited resources?
My biggest thing that I use to convey emotion right away, which some people might look as the default, but honestly, it depends on just how you use it. The way that you can use color in such a dynamic amount of ways. So it's not even just setting the tone for like, you know, you have a very like light source combined with a very warm source. It's like, no, how can you look at the different color spectrum from like something that ranges from like blue to like purple to like how do you shape yellow and red and use those as kind of like a combo effect that not only kind of just divides across the frame, but the accents peer out in their own way and just blend the image perfectly for how you want, especially when it works with a character moment to its fullest potential and just sets the theme basically. It's color has definitely saved me and a lot of people in more ways than one. Like people think, oh, the image looks good with that normal lighting and whatnot. And you're shaping it so that it's not flat, but you don't want it to be that one tonality. So you put some color in there. In the indie world, that could put me on par with like doing anything of a streaming movie or a streaming show, like 100%. Like the ways that we look at color to a degree in the indie filmmaking world is on literally unparalleled. It's wild.
Interesting. So you're adding an additional light in the background per se to
Yep.
change and contrast with the color of the key light, is what you're saying, right?
Yep. We put
Okay.
accent colors wherever we can that naturally work within the scene, or if we're using them more as a motivational moment that like clicks into the scene basically, because we've had effects where we've used it very noticeably, and then we've had times where it's been used very subtly, so it's kind of like that easter egg in certain scenes that like people go back for like multiple watches and they're like, oh my god, that that makes
Yeah.
that redefines the entire emotional theme that they think they thought it was at first, and they're like, wow, we keep learning more from this.
What about filming outdoors? How do you control that?
That's It's actually funny that you bring that up because that's the best way that I can put this into perspective is one of the first longer shorts that we did. It was mine and the director that I work with regularly, and he came out of college with me, Mr. R.S. Powell. He Ghost in the Graveyard was this very unique thing where you'll notice, for anybody that has the chance to like see it later on, a lot of outdoor moments when you're in the graveyard and everything. And I always joke with filmmakers that I come across and whatnot. Rarely do you have that first film that you have that turns you into like the purest filmmaker. That turned us into the purest filmmakers because it is one of the best examples of how you can film in every weather condition in 1 week.
Wow. So without
So
any additional lights, is that what you're saying? Or
So basically, the way that I can say it with the lighting is that we used every different color on the spectrum there was.
okay. So you
Characters
are
had their own
using
definable, yeah, characters had their own definable lights. We adapted to, so we used artificial in a lot of different ways that were noticeable, and then other ways that people would think fit into the natural realm technically would, but when they understand the methodology of it, like what is that? One of those natural things of like, oh, there's just kind of like streetlights in the background. And it's like, I'm glad people thought of it that way because those were cars that were running on low batteries.
oh wow.
Yeah, so it's a whole it's a whole process for the way that works. So I tell people sometimes it's like, lighting can be a different dynamic, and then when it comes to challenges and everything, just running with the theme of it is never feel like you're down when you think something is going downhill just because it didn't go exactly the way you thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like primary example of this is when you're filming in a graveyard in the middle of the night and it was all clear, You go back up 2 hours later, and it was a pure ground of snow.
Oh,
And we
wow.
made it work for us. Like, you know, it's one of those things of like, you do the best you can with what you got, and it image in
Yeah,
the end, it's like, it's not perfect, but at the same time, it tells its own story. So I was like, that's amazing.
that's actually pretty cool
Oh yeah.
for that to happen. How do you develop your signature? I know cinematographers always seem to have their own style and signature. How do you develop your signature and style when adapting to unique demands of different projects?
So I think my thing right away, and I'm sure most cinematographers kind of have this blueprint that they go off of first, where, you have a standard where it's like, okay, you have that master shot that encapsulates everything in a scene. So that's where my brain kind of goes right away thinking about it, because it's like, okay, I want to think about everything that's in a scene and then work down to the shot from there, basically. And so, okay, what am I going to I want to think about the whole variable there, basically. What's going to be included, who's included, what more can we add to make it stand out visually as well as thematically and draws out the emotion for what we want. And then start building in from there and ask yourself, okay, we've gotten past the pure visual image and then some of the technical, and then you're isolating more. So like, the coverage becomes everything right after the master for me, and it becomes, okay, let's do this in the standard ways at first. So like, let's isolate at either, a medium shot. Let's go for maybe like a medium wide, depending on the message that we're trying to send, with like body language every so often, because that kind of goes under the radar. Not all the time, but sometimes people like let it slip because they think the facial emotion is just going to stand out on its own. It's like, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah,
We have
yeah,
full range of motion here. So, versus like if you're in a tighter area where it's like, okay, no, that's going to be the definable message then, because they can't flail around almost. So, I look at it that way. And then if we're not from that point constrained by anything, I found early in my career and whatnot, I find that, hell, inserts were definitely one of my strongest suits. Like, I thought people's thought process behind inserts is like, it's hard because it's like, it's not technically an actor in the moment. It's like, it's an object, or it's like some sort of thing that is in motion, or, a camera dynamic or anything of that nature. But I found doing that even right away on the first couple projects, I was noticing the frequency of that, the quality and the quantity right away for doing that was going way faster than anything I was doing with that. I was like, Jesus Christ, we've been trying to like do this stuff with the actors and whatnot for like 2 or 3 hours on end, and we're getting like maybe 3 or 4 shots out of it. Meanwhile, inserts that are filling in the blanks but having thematic weight to the story, we're getting like 18 of those.
yeah,
Like an
yeah.
hour.
Are you, when it comes to your style, are you using a tripod? Are you using a gimbal? Are you handheld? What is your most, I guess, your most comfortable style that you love to use?
So I think I've kind of I'm veering more and more and adapting to just going beyond the stationary on like a tripod and everything, because
Mhm.
that's where my comfortability is most, because I always find it like interesting if I'm able to like pan or tilt and whatnot. I'm not so concerned about anything that's going to happen that's unnatural to the camera. It's just everything's in control. It's like, okay, motion can go any way I want. This is locked and like tied together the way that it needs to. But I found recently, and I think it's one of those things of like, you can adapt to over time. It's like your body gets a sense of feeling of like, okay, you've really understood the stillness of a shot, even with those subtle motions, that taking it off the tripod recently and like going to a ready rig or going handheld and whatnot, those things that were negatives are just starting to become like huge positives and benefits like along the way, because it's adding this other element to it that people would think, oh, you have to do it that way. And I'm like, no, Surprisingly not. I'm finding ways of adapting to that quite easily that I never would have thought were possible. Like what is it? Like in the last 2, 3 films that I think I've done, we've done away with like the tripod for I think 1 or 2 scenes in between certain things, just because we're on a constraint, and people need to like uphold themselves, whether it's the crew or the actors, and like have to be in this specific like emotional range or attitude or something like that, and they have to have that certain physicality to them still.
Yeah.
That we're like, okay, we're picking up the camera, we're going, and we're blowing through everything, and it's working out just the way that we need it to be, holding it for like 3 hours.
Oh my gosh. How
Yeah,
can you hold it for that long without your arms getting tired?
that's the best question. That like, what was it? I think because I'm starting to get better about like using the ready rig for support, but I remember
Yeah.
on one of the last 48 hours that we did and whatnot that was horror based, there's what is it? There was one shot that it's the there were a couple different ways of saying it. I like to call it the corpse table. And it was just director thought process is like, hey, we're streamlining this. We need to go handheld or something. We just need to go through the motion of like seeing everything
Yeah.
steadily on that table. And meanwhile, you've got crew in the background that aren't necessarily needed at the time, so they're just like watching it all unfold, and I'm handhelding this giant camera rig that probably weighs like 30 pounds. just And I'm just continuously doing it for like 3 different takes, not putting it down, and they're just like, how are you not just dropping to the ground right now yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, takes a lot of discipline and sheer power of will.
Are you using a ready rig that has the two arms that are articulating out? Is that what you're using, or?
More of the best way of putting it, more of the single arm where it's like the string drop down kind of, where it's like the one
Oh, over
press.
the head.
Yeah,
Okay. How do you like
yeah.
using that? What does that feel like?
I think I'm adapting to like finding more styles of using it, because like the way that I approached it at first, because even before like watching a whole bunch of videos like people that review it or like have different ways of using it in the field, I always kind of looked at it as like, okay, I'm using it as tension relief at first, but I'm trying to keep it all centered. But I
Yes.
have, yeah. See, and there are times where I'm like, that works. I think it's like you really have to keep it like high raised though, like to the chest basically. Like it can't go any lower.
Yeah.
And this is where the adaptability is coming into play, and you just have to try different techniques that work for you basically to like know, if it's going to be stable, and it's going to give you the less yield for physical exhaustion.
So
But
it's still heavy. You're still.
you're still feeling it, but you're feeling, because there's not really like a projectile way of like quantifying it. Like if I had to say something, I'd probably say you take about 30% of the capacity off, would be like the
Okay.
simplest way that I could say it. But so like that was the way that I found using it, is like center to your chest kind of, you're feeling the weight, but the yield is less basically. But in certain instances, obviously, this is what goes through like a person's height and everything as well, is certain times you can't get away with that, like me, who's just over 6 foot tall, because if you have like smaller actors, like the tilt effect for that is going to be like really off-putting, and it's going to like
Yeah.
draw like the eye's going to be like taken out, but it's going to be wondering, wait, how did the depth present itself that way?
Uh huh.
I found in certain instances that, and I'm going to try a couple different options like later on still as well, because I'm still perfecting it, but like some instances shooting from the hip and everything, that's been really good. If you have like the undercarriage support, but then you have like one hand on like a back rail or a handle that kind of like sits to the side. Or I haven't tried this in combo yet, but if you do the shoulder rig and you have enough support where it's like able to like kind of pull the line over, and there's not as much tension for like the actual force into the back support basically, that's another way that I've thought about doing it. And then there's, what is it? And I think there's been certain ways of like if I go like really low with it sometimes too, and I'm able to like prop it up. So
Interesting.
it's a versatile thing. It's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I looked at it at one point and I was like, I don't know how you could stable that from side to side.
yeah,
And I mean, you're trying to solve that Z axis, right? Where you're walking. So it's sort of, but it's just that weird. I mean, it looks cool. Like,
yeah,
that's all. It looks
yeah. No,
cool.
that's the big thing. Everybody's like, it looks cool, and it's like you're getting used to it, and then you know,
Yeah.
you gotta
Yeah.
love the 21st century where everybody's like finding different ways of adapting that method now, and everybody has their own perspective on this. But people that are like, if you want to go beyond the gimbal, why not try the DJI 4D and then have the chicken effect with that Z axis to the ground?
Which I find that looks superb to me. Like,
Yep,
I feel
that's
like that would help, wouldn't it?
yep. It's not a thought that enters my head often, but it just takes me back to right before I was graduating, and I keep thinking of my old buddy Alan, and I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, why are you the one that has to have that?
Oh, he has one. Did you get to use
Yeah,
it?
he's used it for a couple things. I don't blame him because literally, aside from like certain lens choices and everything, I mean, it's cool because it's compact and it's lighter for that effect. But it's hard when you're in the cinematography game as like your main thing. And you're like, it'd be cool to have smaller lenses, but god dang it, I really love those giant cinema lenses for the effects that I get off of them.
Yeah. Those lenses are pretty hefty, aren't they? How much do they weigh?
What was that? The newest one, because I was using mainly because I'm all about zoom lenses all live long day. Like as much as I
Hmm.
love diving into primes every so often because they give you a good like very crisp or creamy image and whatnot for those soft textures and everything. I'm never going to be able to get past versatility enough to give up zoom lenses. So my thing for a long time was, and I still use it every so often, especially if I really know I don't want any interruptions and whatnot on set. I was using it was mainly known as a photo lens, but the Tamarack 18 to 400 mil.
400. Holy smokes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that gives you a lot of range. And if I the next item on the list for like making sure that I have the full coverage for that is getting to the full frame camera route because when you're on crop sensors and whatnot, it's like
Yeah.
when you get used to the math, it's not as hard. But when you're getting into the game right away, and entry level stuff is usually all cropped, like
Yep.
until we get to the day where like giant cinema cameras with 8K take over the game completely so that they forget
We're
all
this close.
yeah,
We're
so
this close.
they forget about they forget about the sensor and make it just about the
Yeah.
type, they make it about the quality, the resolution,
Right.
and that'll
Right.
be the perfect world. But for right now, with having that limitation and everything, being used to the math by now, I'm like, okay, it's no problem for me. And even then, I find ways to work around it, whether it be okay. I figure out and construct the measurements of the space that I inhabit, or what do I need to do to start shaping light naturally if I'm in outdoor environments and everything? Because sometimes it's run and gun on the go where it's like, okay, it's camera setting based, but then there are other times where I'm like, no, this would be a good opportunity to start exploring light modification beyond the camera. This
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
works better for you if you want to keep that quality there and not have to disrupt that the way that you want. So that's kind of the way that I've seen it. But to answer the original thing was uh yeah, when it comes to lens sizes and everything like that, because I'm all about zooms, there's a lot more heft to that glass because of how much they put in it, especially
Hmm.
the especially the some of them are aluminum plastic based, but the the ones that I've kind of looked at more of a I want to say like polyurethane metal, not
Mm.
necessarily steel. So they're so like going from my photo zoom of like 18 to 400, I was like, no, I really want to get that. I really want to explore the flaring options more for like lenses that were built specifically for cinema, basic or yeah, more for videography and like actual moving images. So
Yeah.
I got because I'm all about like deal sniping wherever I can find it, and I completely lucked out in something that I'd eyeballed for a long time. It was the gosh, what was it? It was the I think it was the Venice. What was it? Yeah, the Venice optics, known as really weird name, and I it keeps getting me every time. They call it the lens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
What's that all about?
so it's the what is it? So it's the 25 to 100 mil, and compared to that photo lens probably weighs what, maybe 3 to 4 pounds. That new cinema lens that I lucked out on for
That
what
thing's
usually
huge.
4 grand, and I got it for like $1,500.
Wow.
And that went from what was it? Went from 3 to 4 pounds with my old one that I still use every so often to about 15 to 18 pounds in that new one.
Holy smokes.
And it's massive. So every time I put that thing on, I'm like, well, time to get the rail extensions out.
Hilarious. What other hacks? I mean, are there anything like low cost gear or creative hacks that you found that are invaluable for achieving high quality cinematic looks?
So something that I don't use as often, I'm trying to get better about it. I'm lucky enough that being a Blackmagic user and everything like that, I'm lucky that I have the built-in NDs and everything, so
Yeah,
I
that's
don't have to
nice.
visit that too often. But I do want to explore it a little bit, especially since the biggest thing I'm trying to nail down, because this is probably the most frequent thing that comes up in any film that I do, and we're getting better, but I'm getting better about adapting to it as much as the directors are being able to recognize it, which is when you're having to aim a shot at glass or windows or anything reflective,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and as much as you try to ignore it, and it's you think, okay, it just it's a little bit noticeable in the background, but then you look at it play back, or in certain instances, it's unfortunate if it makes it all the way to the editing room and then they see it there. And I'm like, oh no. It's just
Yeah.
you try your best for it. Is creative hacks, especially in the indie world, I think looking at polarizers and everything is becoming the biggest thing that I'm starting to identify with now, because
Okay.
I've what was in the last couple months I've started looking at more and more and more, and I'm trying to merge that ground of like, okay, I'm getting on lens ones, but I'm also getting matte box filter ones because I want to make it intuitive enough where it's like, okay, size variation for like lens coverage is like really difficult as well, especially if you don't want like shadow framing or something across the across the lens and having that look very undistinguished in the final video.
What is shadow framing? What does that mean?
So people have their own different terms for it. I look at it as shadow framing when it's like you have very distinctive lighting within a frame, but because of the way that what is it? Because of the way that there's like an effect if you're putting like on a lens attachment that's either a polarizer or some sort of filter that's like cropping out light, basically, you're getting like very undefined shadows that are like just an oddball shape in the frame, basically. It's
Oh,
like it
interesting.
becomes this weird thing where it's like the eye doesn't see it right away, but you look closely. The most common one that comes up is people that are using either ND filters or any sort of specialized like effects filter that isn't constructed in a well enough quality that when you look back at an image or something like that, if you're not seeing it in real time, is like a shadow X across the frame. And if you look closely, like at the outer edges, you're like, okay, that looks light, but then it like seems like the tonality across the center port of the image keeps going down by like 3 to 5 different
Oh,
shades.
okay.
It's like the
So
eye's trying to think. It's like, wait, why does it look like there's just a shape of shadow just crossing the frame for no apparent reason?
yeah.
Like,
Is that so that's why there's matte boxes. That's what matte boxes are for,
so matte
to kind of
boxes,
block that out.
yeah. So matte boxes to a specific degree. they help shape light more from like coming into like direct contact with the lens. So like if I was to how was it? If I was to describe it more of like the visual sense of the way that you see it is like you have highlights. So like say you were filming outdoors basically in direct sunlight. It's like even if you're aiming away from the sun to a certain degree, the way that it's angled, you have light that tries to peer in from all 360 degrees of the rounded edge versus you put a matte
Okay.
box either on or around it, and then you could put like some sort of like cover over it if it doesn't directly attach. The light falls off the black of the matte box basically, and then it just becomes all centered to that like square rectangular frame basically. So it's like
Interesting.
the light's evenly coming into the lens and then hitting the sensor of the camera versus lights coming in from all different directions and there's no specific center point that hits the point of the sensor basically. It's like the sensor's taking in way too many highlights versus being able to like hit the neutrality of like having shadow as well.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
never knew that. So I see,
Yeah.
everyone gets wowed because the camera has a matte box, but I'm like, well, what's the matte box for?
Yeah.
What does it do?
Everybody thinks it's a really cool thing to put on a camera. It's like
Right.
it is.
You
Everything
need
has a purpose though.
it? Right.
We haven't
What
carried 40 pounds for nothing.
Well, that's another thing too. What changes in technology or the film industry excite you most about the future of
I think what I'm finding more recently is as much as I love bigger rigs, I think I love the concept where, especially if the resource available to us, it's like you have the ability to have bigger rigs and whatnot, which is cool for stationary related stuff. But the fact that we're going from massive cameras and whatnot that like have such this high resolution and quality to them that if we even went back, let's say probably 4 or 5 years ago, where it was like okay, getting an 8K 12K resolution or something like that in its early days, like purely a beta testing phase almost by that point, was okay, you got to get them, you got to buy the biggest box that you can almost of a camera and then put all these different modifications on it to going to something as simple as great example is just reminded me of this the other day for what was it, the trailer that came out for what was it, 28 years later, where it was a
Hmm,
sequel to the older movie. Completely shocked me. Somebody was like, "Yeah, great news. Filmed with an iPhone 15 Max, the whole movie."
was it really?
Apparently, it was. They showed behind the scene images. I mean, they built a noticeable rig around it, and they attached like a more adaptable lens to it because you can only go so far with the built-in lenses on phones still. Even though you're getting better, it's getting better, but to get a cinema lens on a camera is it's wild. So it just blew my mind to like see something as you know small as that you're thinking, oh, that's pretty good for something around the lines of like, oh, you can do something very small so with it too.
Yeah,
Hollywood movies
why
are doing it now.
was it just did they do that just for the challenge of doing it?
I think that's part of it, and aside from the marketability parts, I think it's creative choice because it gives people, especially if it's like something that involves a lot of action and a lot of like
Huh,
range of motion like in the moment, and they can't constrain themselves to something in the moment. They just need something that they can throw together and be like, okay, we're running it. We're going into full action sprint mode. it's
wow.
it's a whole different process of like, hey, look at that guy over there with a 50-pound rig. Now look at this guy with a slightly modified phone that probably weighs like 5 pounds with all the
Right?
attachments on it, run across the barrage field.
Oh, interesting. Have you ever used a phone in one of your films?
I haven't personally in one of the films. The best thing that I've done with my phone probably so far, and I think I really do want to dive into it eventually in the film world, but I've used it for public like sporting events and everything like that where I really don't like because I have such an attachment to like anything that I go to, even if it's just like a personal life thing. If I know it's going to be adventurous or something like that, I keep wanting to bring the camera, but I keep stopping myself at times. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I got to be present in this moment now. I gotta like sometimes the excuse I get away with it. Like I was like what was it? I was like joking. What was it? I was like joking. I think at a holiday party or something a while back. I think it was sometime last year. I was like, people were like, "Oh yeah, it's like," and they're gonna go dancing. It's like, "Oh, so this is how you get away from stuff like that, right?" It's like, yeah, because this is me presently at everything that I can almost do. I get the excuse of being able to film all the events that happen.
As a cinematographer, why did you choose a Blackmagic camera?
The biggest thing right away, and this went through a lot of different discussions, especially in college, because Blackmagics were the things we were introduced to right away. We got lucky enough that red was an option. It's one of
Uh,
those things right away that you think about, though, even though the instructors kind of took the fear out of it for us and being like, "Oh, the insurance covers like X amount of whatever."
yeah.
We were like, but it's still that fear, that fearsome thing though of like, it's difficult. But then we broke it down into a technical perspective of we have access to black magic, we have access to red. However, the thing that nobody talks about when it comes to the comparison of those two like major brand of film cameras, when it comes to editing, one of them is not super difficult, the other one is, because the quality ratio and the bitrate ratio for importing and editing that in real time, I'll say it for red first, it's astronomical the kind of computer that you're going to have to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we said, as much as we wanted a test run with red, I don't want to even remotely try to imagine how editing that footage is going to go, as well as the duration at which it's going to take to edit a 30-second clip with that.
All right.
And then, so it was kind of like a default choice, but then when we look at the technical aspects, we look at the results that we were yielding from that right away, we're like, the UI, the the different options that you can have for modifying it, just virtually everything that you could imagine that you'd be able to do to a film camera with. At the time, only one exception was it's difficult for like leveling to certain things when you want to put attachments on it at the time, but
Mm.
they fixed the problem because people that are diehard Blackmagic fans had the biggest impulse of complaining about this. Why can't it be a box camera? Why did it have to look like a DSLR? Which I understandably so. I was kind of like, I do get
Marketing.
it because it was. It's one of those things of like I make it work, but I do understand where people's perspectives are because it limits you to mainly doing a lot of stuff on tripods and everything, trying to put it on gimbals and everything up until like what was it, about a year and a half ago when DJI got really good about expanding the width, yeah, the width depth on the what was it? Yeah, the width depth on the freaking gimbal itself versus having a tight compact space. They made it they widened the scope of it to a degree so you're like, oh yeah, you can actually fit what this was probably built for, honestly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the camera that worked with it best at the time versus just using a normal DSLR for like videography or something like that. If you really wanted mod every single gimbal option there is.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people they just lean into. I like the built-in ND filters. I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that. What is your favorite focal length? Do you have one?
Surprisingly enough, let's see. Because most people want to go with 50 right away. I think I've found more often than not, I think I found that somewhere between the range of like 65 to like 75 is where usually hit the mark. And it's interesting because like most people that think like 70 and beyond, they think of it in the terms of like, oh, because they think of it from like the pure film perspective versus the digital rate
Mm.
perspective, because, you know, I can't blame certain people. Sometimes it really is cool exploring film, especially especially for people that are coming into it right away and they want to learn about the old methodology versus the new age era of like how you do stuff digitally. And I it takes me back to how funny it is with like IMAX becoming like a really big like prime factor of like a format now instead of just like, oh, we do
Right.
it for every couple movies. Like, no, every movie is gonna have IMAX.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people that see like, oh, movies that come out in IMAX is cool and everything, and then you look at the depending on how far it goes. The best example that I got for this is when Oppenheimer came out, and you look at the what was it, the 70 millimeter film rate for the slate on that. It's not something that people see a lot. I remember when I saw the image of that reel for the first time. The reel for that movie stretched like 4 miles long.
Holy smokes.
So I can't
Yeah.
even imagine how that looks when you're trying to put that in a back room.
Right.
Like just let it ride. I'm like, oh my god,
Wow.
just unreal. But and I think I kind of think the other side of it, like thinking back like years ago when I was exploring like more focal rates from like the wide depth at like 24 to the very like normalcy rate, because this can differ for certain people, but you know the scientific research points to the idea that the human eye sees at like a 50 millimeter ray.
Hmm.
Typically, like it varies based on like the quality at which you see at a distance or something like that, or farsighted versus close sighted and everything of that nature. But the thing that I found in that process, and I kind of learned from a lot of different perspectives, like I was learning it through YouTube videos of like people that were just like in the freelance industry, as well as kind of developed it a little bit in college, where 70 millimeters, when you compare it to a photography rate, like it can work in cinematography, but I looked at it because I was learning it purely as photography at the time,
Hmm.
was it gives you that very like full range image for a subject basically. So like if you take so that's where like the math comes into play for like crop sensors again. But if you look at it for a full frame, 70 millimeters is like that crisp and creamy, like flush image that doesn't make people look like they're fading into the background. It's like
Right. Yeah. The
separates them
bouquet.
enough where it's like you get a full depth. And I was like, so when I went through that process and like looked at that through a different variety of images at first, I was like, man, that's like blowing my mind at how well that that efficiently like sells the point. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not cutting people off in the worst possible ways.
And I've seen like different frame rates or different lens millimeters, how your face starts to thin out and kind of get full, and then depending on what you're doing,
Yep.
what's the best range? Would 70 make it normal?
Yeah, so 70 gets you right about normal, and it gives it a little bit more like spread as well, because this used to be like the prime thing, and it's very well still a thing that exists, but I think, kind of going with like the new wave of technology and evolving is I think it sticks more to photography more than anything. Like cinematography, I think it's
Mm.
almost delved its way beyond, is like when an image like adds weight that's not there. It's like the old school rumor of, hey, on camera you're gonna look 10 pounds heavier
Yeah,
somewhere. Like, oh
exactly.
god, no.
You're like, thanks.
Yeah, great. That's gonna fulfill the day.
Then you go to the premiere. You go to the premiere, and they're like, "Oh, you looks like you lost some weight. You look
Yeah,
good."
like, god dang, guys.
You're
Why?
like, "What are you talking about this? This was six
I
months
don't know
ago."
what that is.
Matt, let me ask you a serious question here. What genre would your life be if someone were to direct you in a film or direct a film about you?
As much as I want to exist, if somebody was to direct me, as much as I want to go the idea of the action sci-fi route,
Oh, nice.
and I
I mean, it could
still
it could happen.
it could, and I hold my weight on that, because I'm sure everybody's got that one thing they want to do out there as far as genre. Me, I'm so tethered to wanting to do action and sci-fi so badly, and I'm not going to deny that it's not ever going to happen because I know it will. We've
Very
got
good.
story. I've got stories in the pipeline as well as other people have stories in the pipeline that are rapidly unfolding that I'm still really tethered to. But if it was a here and now moment based on my life in general, the experiences I've had, and the connections that I've built as a foundation with actors, crew, and everything, and it's the thing that people want to see more of, is an action drama route.
Action drama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because as much as like dramedy would be like a big thing, it's like it's really hard to nail that down so far. It's like finding that
Yeah.
unique balance for that. But action and drama are definitely the biggest things because this goes through what is it? This goes through a behind the scenes thing versus an on screen thing where people want to see more drama on screen and we want to see action on screen. The funny thing that we have to compare that to is we experience way more action off screen behind the scenes than we,
Right.
which is making a real big statement for itself. So that's, you know, I suppose
Yeah.
that's actually a pretty good segue to say moments on set that you think were going to turn into a disaster.
Yes. Especially in low budget. Yep.
So,
100%.
yeah. So going with that theme, what is it? Going with that theme, there's a lot of good ones. So it's like, what is it? The top ones right away. One of the first films we do, we're in the we're in the middle of nowhere out in Port Gamble when we're filming in a graveyard, and wind is just gusting at 30 miles an hour, and it blows a tent into somebody's car.
Oh my gosh.
And what was it? And freaking oh my gosh, like actress that has to run full speed and whatnot stop, and two guys have to pick her up like full speed in the air in freaking green morph suits on the ground.
Wow.
And then, oh my gosh, what are some other really solid ones? Oh my god, there's actually a lot of good camera related ones. Freaking filming, filming overhead with the rig at the time probably weighing about 25 pounds, and I have to hold it overhead on stairs that have
Oh,
plastic tarp down because there's freaking corn syrup blood going everywhere.
that sounds like a hazard. That sounds like a
Yep.
safety hazard.
Yep, that it makes a statement for that. And then freaking oh my god, what's oh my gosh, I think what was it? This was a minor one, but then it's funny because I feel like almost all the hazards have happened in the same house, surprisingly. One where we're filming directly like overhead, and it's a very like almost like upside down shot where it's like isolated. So it's like the actress's head on frame is upside down, but it's like pointed directly down and whatnot to like sell this visual like trippy effect for the way the scene was going.
Yeah.
And as many precautions as we take, and nothing bad happened to it, but when you're having to tilt down that low and everything, and the monitor can only take so much strain, and then it just almost falls down on her face.
Ooh.
That was
Yeah.
another. That was another.
That makes my palms sweat. Nobody
Yep.
ever wants to break their equipment.
Yep. Nope.
Yeah.
Woo.
Matt, what's next for you? Anything you're working on now or in the near future?
So the biggest thing to come up probably soon is what is it? The Horrorverse's very own Aaron Carlson has another documentary that he's coming up on soon. So that's going to be pretty interesting because I have a feeling I'm probably going to be the primary camera lead on it, surprisingly enough, for the whole thing finally for once. I'm like, yay.
For once? Why is that? Because he normally picks up the camera, right? He usually
He does,
goes
and I
with it.
think he's finding it. He wants to explore that, and I'm glad he wants to do that because he's the kind of guy that he wants to do everything. He wants to explore everything. That's always been his thing, which I'm like, more power to him because I mean,
Yeah.
trust me, we all feel that way.
Yeah.
We're better at it in doses, though. Trying to keep it going the long run is like the
Yeah.
most impressive thing that he does. So, but at the same time, it's more impressive now only because one of the key factors that, you know, it's not the most publicized thing, but just because I've always found a connection to it ever since I truly got in touch with them. Because I joke about it every once in a while, but it was funny. The was it one of the first films they were properly doing together, him and his buddy Chuck and whatnot, who's taking a little bit of a step away, retirement, which is good. I think he needs it. It's like, you know, life has a lot of ways of like pulling you out, but it's like you're gonna come back stronger for it. Is when I met them for the first time when I was interning at local news station out here for BCAT.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was the funniest recognition I remember when I went on the podcast for them the first time. And I
Yeah.
told them, yeah, I remember how great it was when you guys were promoting the Outrider at local news station. I remember Chuck's thought process right away. He was like, wait a second. And he was like, oh my God, that was, yeah. I'm like, yeah. You see all the connections that come back together.
Yeah.
And so I've always had like a personal connection to it ever since I saw the story flow for the way they want and just the passion for wanting to create something like that. And so after the initial time I think shooting for them when it was episode 7, which was based on Dusk Till Dawn, which was a lot of
Nice.
that actually goes to another interesting story for that for behind the scenes coverage
Yeah.
is what is it? It's See, this is why people gotta love the behind the scenes stories for this because there's so many things that you think went one way, and it's like, no, it could have gone completely different direction if we were not fortunate enough in certain instances. Is
Right.
we're in the middle of downtown Tacoma, outside the back store alley in a parking lot of a bar at what was it? It was probably shooting probably started at about 11 p.m. It's like 1 in the morning in the middle of the
Wow.
week and we're out in that parking lot. We finally get to the point where the lead character is pulling out his signature pistol and everything, and shooting all the vampires everywhere and everything. And here comes Tacoma PD just swooping by.
Nobody told them?
No, for for the sake of what it is, and
Yeah.
because it's like he's not. There's the win it kind of guy, which understandably so for something like this. I'm like, I get because we have to do it sometimes too. We're cautious about it every so often, but
Yeah.
circumstances have to be made at times. Is cruising on by, and we're thinking stops right in the middle of the street, is about to walk over, and I'm just standing here with the rest of the people, like, oh my god, oh boy, where are we gonna go with this? He goes
Yeah.
right away. He's like, I got this. He like goes over there, and this is just like pure comedy gold for like the most realism moment. He's like, yeah, officer, we're just like we're doing film and everything like that. It's like, oh no, I don't have any problem with it. I just want to see how this is unraveling. This seems awesome.
Awesome.
when you when you know cops are like, it's been a day. It's 1 in the morning. I just
Yeah.
want to see something badass for once that doesn't
Yeah.
require me doing anything.
That's great. That's
Just
that's really good. I had, we had the cops call on us. I was working on a short film with another director, writer, just an actor, doing an acting thing, and we were in one of the Seattle downtown, one of the Seattle parks, I think it was, and cops came up, hands on guns, because we had fake guns, and I was like, nobody called the cops to tell them what was up.
oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we got away with a warning, but man, they were ready to take us out. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
so
No, that's always
safety.
the
It's got to be safe.
yeah, and that's why this is the thing. It's like it's starting to come into the fold on every set, especially with my main director and everything, Mr. Powell. It's this thing of like, especially when it comes to like weapon safety and everything, we pride ourselves on, you know, we may be past the biggest incidents that happen with that, people that acknowledge that happen on Rust, but we take it we take a strong pride and we take an efficiency with it where it's like, okay, if we're gonna use guns, we're gonna use swords. The I can't even think of a more like accurate, detailed briefing of like, okay, guys, Here's the gun. There are no blanks in here. There is nothing in there. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. You looked at the whole thing. Okay. You good? Like, yeah. Okay. There you go. Belongs to you. Don't let anything
Yep.
happen to
Yep.
it. Because yeah, that whole process, and then I mean the times that we've had to do it just to sell the effect and everything, blanks have worked out good for what we need to. So I mean it works good. We have distance between it. It all just comes together, and ultimately I think we really luck out on the amount of connections that we make in every different aspect of production that we have.
Oh yeah. It's good to know
Literally, the
people.
quality control of some of the stuff that we have is like the biggest factor beyond just our own creative ideas. We're like, thank God that there's enough of a of a status of people out here that we can pull from every department.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's too many horror stories. So what, Matt, what's your favorite tech when it comes to cinematography?
The thing beyond the generic part of the camera, I think I always find any different unique type of rig has always been my biggest thing. So like whether it be, going beyond going
Easy
beyond
rig?
tripods, I I want to get more active into using gimbals. I know that's one of the biggest items on my list that I try to explore with my own, but then there are times where it's like I have to adapt to others just because of my availability of things right now.
Hmm.
So stuff like that. Having my own equivalent of the Ready Rig has definitely been like one of the other biggest explorations and whatnot. Handheld feels good every so often. The I know I keep wanting to explore like doing more dolly work with rails and everything a little bit more. That's been the next biggest venture because I've had the track and everything for a while.
Oh, nice. That's
So I'm like,
cool.
yeah, I keep like wanting to explore it, but at the same time, I'm like, I have it for the tripod setup, but I want to go to the Dana Dolly setup and whatnot. I just need the proper, I need the proper setup for it because
Yeah.
the what the age old tale that anybody in the film industry will say, can never have enough gear.
It seems to be like the tools in the toolbox. It's like you get to that point and you're
Yeah.
like, hey, we could use this. What about setup time though? Don't you ever get worried about setup time and setting up the lights, and especially on a low budget when you're on time constraints?
Yep. My biggest factor that I find myself fortunate enough to have, and I feel like I get inspiration from this from like a couple different like indie filmmakers out there, but I created it my own way, was the only things that what is it? The only things when it comes to setup time, especially if it comes to camera department, it's purely just like what is it? Like the on camera monitor or the wiring and everything like that. Everything else though, I have a bag that I have situated to fit the rig just built as it is continuously. I never take the full rig apart.
Oh, nice.
It
Yeah.
stays as it is because that saves, it used to be an hour, but now it saves an additional 30 minutes if I was going to build it from scratch, just because,
Yeah.
frequency over time means that your skill rate for building rigs that you become familiar with just exponentially goes up finally. And I'm like, thank God. So I'm fortunate enough that when it comes to all the necessary attachments and everything, unless I'm trying to like actively coach people that like want to get into the camera department, because I've just kind of found myself like leaned into that role a little bit more recently with knowing that I want to go into a different department in my day job and everything.
Yeah.
So having that and everything, and having that mentor kind of background for people that want to get into it and explore the different aspects of production, I say anything that I can do to help you along the way with that, and anything that you want to explore, by all means do it. Because that's how the community is just going to keep growing out here, and I really am passionate about it doing that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate coming on here. What, real quick, what is your thoughts on AI in the film industry?
I think the biggest thing when it comes to AI is, I know people have this aforementioned thought of, people should get money where money's due, but in some instances, you know if it's not taking the quality assurance and like the pure range of what makes the craft what it needs to be, like if it's background elements and everything like that, that purely just because we needed to fill space and whatnot, we put all the meaningful elements in there. I say allow AI the versatility to be able to do something with that. If it's not pulling from the primary focus of what you're doing and it's, you know, taking all the creativity craft out of it just because somebody was like, oh, I clicked a button and then voila, that's what it is now.
Right.
Like, no, that's that's not what it needs to be. Like, we're all here like to make that a thing, not just generate it as a thing.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. Is like if it's anything, if AI is used just to like generate or build anything that's like filling space and whatnot, whether it be on screen or off screen, if it really has to be a factor there, then I'm all about exploring the unique perspective of it, just because I think like it's a beneficial tool. Most of all, like it shouldn't replace the people. It should be a tool that you are able to utilize to like better better understand, as well as get a quality result for like the stuff that you actually make or build. Basically, like it's a building block on top of an idea or a concept that you already have, not oh, that's going to generate the concept and then I'm going to go from there. It's like, no, the people are the first step, the
Yeah.
tool the second step, not reversed.
Right. Right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for being on the Downing Cut. What is the best way for people to reach out to you to get a hold of you?
You can reach me on Phantom Film on Instagram at Phantom Filmmaker PNW. You can see me on Facebook at Matt McKinney. As as Joe will point out, you'll find that very creative red panda picture.
We'll put it up on there.
Yeah, you'll put
Yes.
up in the thing. But,
You'll know him by the red panda. That's his.
yeah, you'll know it right away. So yeah,
Yeah.
yep. So those are the prime spaces you can find me there.
What
But
is Black Star Media Entertainment?
uh,
Is that
for right
yours?
now, yeah, for right now it is a what is it? For right now, that's technically a starting outlet essentially for my business down the line. So that's
Nice.
kind of where that kind of ranges to right now. So
Awesome.
everybody gets to be out on be on the lookout in the future when I actually get the company established.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, congratulations to that.
Yeah.
And with that note, we'll see you in the next episode.